Welcome to Biohacking with Brittany. Thank you for tuning into this week's podcast episode. I am your host, Brittany Ford, a registered holistic nutritionist who specializes in all things holistic health, biohacking, women's health, fertility, and everything under the sun like that. This episode is very much in alignment with that. And if you're new here, thank you for listening. And if you have been around for a long time, thanks for coming back and for sharing the love and supporting the show. It really does mean a lot. I have recently been working on a new recipe. I guess I haven't announced it yet, but I can do it right now. A new chocolate recipe. And if anyone has been following me on socials for the past year or more, they know that I have this hormone balancing chocolate recipe. Okay, it's linked right in my profile right now. It's on my website. It's everywhere. It's very easy to find. And essentially, it's this homemade paleo keto chocolate that you can make that has specific ingredients in it that are functional. And what that means is that these ingredients do more than what a typical food ingredient might do. So, for example, there are adaptogens in it that can really help to balance our hormones, help to bring estrogen down, progesterone up, cortisol down, that type of thing. And so I made this hormone balancing chocolate last year and I shared it, and it's got so many downloads. So that's a free recipe on my website. If you ever want it, go for it. And then I recently was like, okay, well, like, what if we can make it a little more specific and we can make fertility chocolate, fertility boosting chocolate. And so that's what I've been playing with in the kitchen in the last week. I have finally tweaked the recipe to make sense, to have ingredients in it that have like scientifically been proven to support fertility. And so I am now releasing that. So look out for that if you're interested. Again, it's a free download. It's a free recipe. And the point is that you can make this at home. You can have a little piece a day and you can support your health, your preconception health, fertility hormones through food. And so much so, like last year, I was actually considering, and I mean, maybe I will do this at one point. I don't know. Oh, I always go back to this. I would actually love to create a line of chocolate that does this. Okay. That is this like functional line of chocolate that does more. I was in the works of this last year. This was before I was pregnant. And I was going to have this partner and I would have to invest a ton of money. And essentially, it just didn't feel like the right timing because I didn't know if I was going to be able to get pregnant and what that would mean. And lo and behold, we got pregnant right away. And then we moved and all of these things. So maybe that's something that is going to come in the future. But I imagine that these would kind of be the products. So it would be like a chocolate bar that I would send you. And there would be one that would be hormone balancing. And that would be for all of the girls out there who have irregular menstrual cycles or PCOS or endometriosis or even menopause. Although I'd love to make a separate menopause chocolate. And then there would be like the fertility one, the pregnancy one, the postpartum one. And all of them would actually be focused on like health. Like, how do we alleviate the symptoms associated with this certain condition? And maybe we'd have a men's health one too. But yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to do. And so funny. I mean, I don't know if they listened to this show, but about a month ago, I got this email from a company, from this guy who's like, hey, I saw your hormone balancing chocolate last year and I decided to make a product out of it. So he essentially took my idea and made a business out of it, which, you can do. I don't own the idea. Anyway, so I like get this email and he's like, he wants me to be involved. And I was like, okay, like send me your product or like send me your ingredients, not even send me your product. Let me just look at this thing first. Sends me his ingredients and it is nothing I would ever put my name on. Okay. And if you're listening and you're that person who sent me that email, kudos to you for like taking something and making something out of nothing and bringing something to fruition. However, you have to understand, like when you're dealing with the audience of the people who would ever buy something that is like functional chocolate, they are going to be so picky and they're going to have such a high knowledge of ingredients. So you can't have a milk chocolate bar. You can't have soy in it. Like, these like simple things, cane sugar, like you can't sweeten the bar with cane sugar. So I saw the ingredients and I was like, there's no way I would ever touch this. So anyway, that's just to say that like people take your ideas and run with it. And it's not how I would do it if I was ever going to build a physical chocolate bar company. It would be like the cleanest of the clean, keto, paleo, organic. My gosh, like the standards would be so high because I would want it to actually support people's health and not cause any issues, blood sugar issues, whatever it might be, or dairy, things like that. So that is always on my website. Look out for the fertility boosting version coming out this week. If it's not out already by the time you're listening to this, go download that. That one's really yummy. It's really good. I mean, both are really good. So just try them out and let me know what you think. Okay, today's episode is all about weight loss resistance, which is something really interesting. Like I actually didn't know much about this before diving into this episode with Bridget. And she is a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. And she really knows a lot about this space. We also talk about her son's mental health crisis and how she's been able to help him through functional nutrition. We talk about minerals, metabolism, mental health, microbiome, all of these types of things. And so it's a really interesting, intriguing episode. And I loved having her on the show. And a quick shout out to the partners of this week, Mimeo. I love Mimeo. I was talking about them just the other day to a friend of mine. They are a company that focuses on how to mimic the really, really key cellular turnover ingredients ingredients in our body. And so Mimeo is like a mimics. It has 4 different biomimetic ingredients in it. So biomimetic means that it mimics these things that are already in our body. And what this does is it helps with cellular turnover, cleaning up, think about like deep cleaning, spring cleaning, cleaning out your closet. It's basically what it does for your cells. And it mimics a 36-hour fast, which is wild. So if you don't want to fast, but you want the benefits, Mimeo is your way to go. If you care about longevity, which we should all care about at this point, Mimeo is your way to go as well. That is MIMIO. And use my discount code biohacking Brittany so you don't have to pay full price, because none of us like paying full price, okay? We all like a little discount, so go for it. And a shout out to Bioptimizers. They have such a good range of products. And I was actually just looking at a new product. Well, it's not actually new. It's new to me because I haven't taken it before. But they have this product called HCl Breakthrough. And this is for all of the people who have low stomach acid. I have also recently posted about this, and I was shook when I saw how many people responded to my Instagram story about this. This is a whole podcast episode coming soon on its own, but this is a very substantial product. And essentially, most people think they have high stomach acid. So they get that kind of like acid reflux up through their throat. And they think, oh, I have too much stomach acid. Okay, so let me take a Tums or a, PPI, proton pump inhibitor, or do these types of things that can reduce it. But in reality, most of us actually have low stomach acid. Now, I'm not going to get too deep into this because it's on the next episode, but what you can really do to help your body create more stomach acid is take something called betaine. So betaine HCl. I like the one from Bioptimizers. I have a couple in my pantry. This is 100% plant-based betaine HCl. I will put the link in the show notes for you. If you're somebody who has listened to these symptoms, okay, how many of these symptoms do you have? Bloating, gas, belching, indigestion, post-meal fatigue, and stomach heaviness or discomfort after meals. Been there, done that before. A lot of the time, that is related to low stomach acid. Also, H. pylori, big deal as well. So this is what I would recommend to you. A lot of people were asking me when I was posting last week about this. Like, what do I take? Okay, I did the baking soda test and now I know I have low stomach acid and like, what should I take? And then this is the product I send them. That's by Bioptimizers. Use my discount code biohacking Brittany will get you the most off out of all of their products, including their mushroom breakthrough, which I drink every day, and this betaine, HCl betaine product, which is called HCl breakthrough. Okay. Enjoy this podcast episode. I hope you learned something new, and I will catch you on Friday for the next one. I put out episodes every Tuesday and Friday. And yeah, follow me on socials if you have any questions. I just realized I didn't do DM of the week. Oh man. Okay. I'll have to do it next time. It's a new feature I'm trying to do and I completely forgot. So if you want to send me a DM, and I love to read them on the show, I will definitely do that. I love hearing your feedback. Thanks so much, and I will catch you next time. Welcome to Biohacking with Brittany. I am so excited that you are listening today. I am joined by the lovely Bridget Orosz, a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner who turned her personal health battles into a mission to heal others, which so many of us do when we end up practicing in this space. After overcoming a rare neurological condition and significant weight loss resistance, Bridget used her experience to heal her son's mental health crisis through functional nutrition, and she also helps other clients do this as well. So we're going to talk about minerals, metabolism, mental health, and the microbiome. And she's here to share her story with us. So Bridget, welcome to the show.
Hi, Brittany. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk to a fellow B word that loves biohacking and holistic health.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, before we kind of get into, I have so many questions about everything that you do and how you've helped your son. I want to know about your personal health journey and what happened that kind of led you to first start looking into this idea of holistic nutrition and health.
Okay, but that's a loaded question. And there's so much, which I think, that's for everybody that's in this space. But ultimately, it actually started with my mom. She passed away from stage 4 colon cancer about a week before my son was born. So a little over 7 years ago now. And when she was trying to heal herself, which ultimately didn't really work out for her, but she did a lot of research into holistic and natural remedies. And so I started to get curious at that point in time. And I had struggled with my health since childhood. I was in and out of the hospital even as a kid. So I've had lifelong chronic conditions, digestive conditions that I was looking into healing. But when I got pregnant with my daughter, I developed a rare neurological condition. It's called IIH, or idiopathic intracranial hypertension. And it used to be called pseudotumor cerebri because basically the body acts like it has a brain tumor. Your body creates too much cerebral spinal fluid and it puts pressure on your brain, pretty much squeezing your brain and your optic nerves as well, creating the same symptoms as a brain tumor. And I went on for about a year undiagnosed. I went from emergency room to emergency room and doctor to doctor, and nobody was really able to tell me what was wrong with me. It would come and go. Sometimes I would be pretty much completely blind. I had crippling vertigo. I couldn't walk sometimes. My hearing in my right ear would come in and out. So I was really bedridden a vast majority of the time. I also had some heart problems and random fainting in public. So it was a lot that was going on with me. And when you can't see and you can't really walk and you're laying in bed all day, your best friend becomes your podcast app. And so I would just lay there for hours. I mean, sometimes like maybe 14 hours in a day, I would just lay there listening to these podcasts, looking for every tidbit of information I could on healing. And ultimately, we did find out what was wrong with me just at a routine eye exam. I had to have an emergency spinal tap because they thought that it was currently going on. But when they did the emergency spinal tap, they found that at that point, it had mostly subsided. So I was dealing more with the aftermath symptoms, which was just really crippling migraines and vertigo and the hearing struggles. When I went to see the specialist for it, and I said to her, like, so what was this? What caused it? And she said, it was probably your weight, and you do need to lose some more weight, because if you don't, there's a chance it could come back. And when I had asked her, I said, what do you mean it could come back? And she said, well, you could lose your vision. And I said, okay. And would it come back? And she said, it may not. I've seen a lot of patients where it hasn't. And so basically it boiled down to, for me, where I had two options: lose weight or risk going permanently blind. And that was tough for me because I struggled really, really badly with weight loss resistance and digestive issues, and losing weight was tough for me. I was always trying and failing. And when I looked at her and I said, well, what if I can't lose weight? And she kind of looked at me and was like, you have to. So I got really into biohacking and I lost nearly 70 pounds, and I've kept it off now for 3 years. And I decided I wanted to help other people do the same, because I also healed some chronic digestive issues. I used to have really bad anxiety and depression, which I healed as well with food. And so I opened up my business and I started helping other people do the same thing: lose weight and heal their mindset.
I love that. I love that you turned your struggle into helping other people. I think that's so important. And I definitely want to get into the biohacking aspect of it. I'm so curious to hear what you've done. But first and foremost, for those people who might not understand this idea of weight loss resistance, how do you define that? And how does that impact people like you who might have these like underlying health issues?
Oh, that's such a great question. I'm so glad you asked it, because so many people, especially women, are gaslit on this topic. We're told that losing weight is as simple as calories in, calories out. It's all energy expenditure. And it does start off that way in metabolically healthy individuals, but over time, right, stress dysregulates our metabolism, and the mechanisms of that weight loss resistance are going to vary on each person's own biochemical individuality. But that can look like a sluggish liver, hormone imbalances, slowed thyroid function, or even just imbalances in your gut microbiota. And so people that have this metabolic dysfunction will find that they exercise, they eat healthy, they watch their calories, but the scale won't budge, or maybe it'll budge a little bit, but then they'll hit this wall and they won't be able to move past it. And you can go to a doctor and you could say, "Hey doc, I've tried everything and I can't lose weight." And the doctor will say, "Try keto." Doc, well, what else is there? And they'll really shrug you off. And so I found this niche and I found this population of people that were just like me, incredibly lonely, felt really gaslit. And I decided that I wanted to serve them and help figure out the root causes of their metabolic dysfunction, because it's ultimately going to be different from what mine were, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I love how personalized your approach is. I think that's really, really important. So, when your doctor said to you, like, no, you have to lose weight, like this is required of you. And also just like putting that fear in you of, hey, this condition might come back. It might come back worse. Where did you go from there? Was it, okay, I'm going to tackle my diet first? Or was it the biohacking? Like, how did that kind of all transcribe?
I just started just trying everything that I could, every biohack, every trick, every different diet. And I figured out what worked for me ultimately. I just knew at the time I had a little baby daughter. I think she was 6 weeks old when I was diagnosed. And I remember looking at her precious little face and thinking, if I couldn't see this face again, if I couldn't see this face grow into a little girl and then a young woman, I don't know that that's a life I would want to live, right? And so I just made a promise to myself that whatever it took, I didn't care if I had to eat boiled chicken and spinach for the rest of my life, I would have done it. And so I started off with a vegan diet, which I think we all do. I think we all start in that space because we hear these great things and there's a lot of propaganda behind it. And now I know that worked because it triggered autophagy, right? That process, which, the body eats itself and it triggers that recycling and we can get rid of old cells. And I had great energy and I started to feel better. But then with a lot of people that have tried a vegan diet over time, right, it stopped working. So the next step for me was I started researching circadian biology because at the time, before I got into all of this, I was restaurant manager and I worked a lot of nights. And the concept that maybe me eating after dark for all of these years could have been an issue. And so I started hacking my circadian biology and only eating while the sun was up. And at that point in time, I wasn't even in a calorie deficit. I was probably eating like 2,300 calories a day because I was still nursing. And I started losing around 4 pounds a week the first month that I hacked my circadian biology. And I was like, okay, I'm on to something. And so I used different forms of fasting, whether that was circadian centered fasting, protein fasting, do like temporary carnivore and then temporary vegan, whatever I can do to sort of shock my system and get my body to stay in that healthy metabolic state. And ultimately, I adapted, right? I forced my body to adapt and to start losing weight.
Let's talk about Mimeo, a breakthrough longevity supplement that hacks your biology to help you look and feel younger. It was created by PhDs in nutrition from over 7 years of clinical research, and Mimeo was designed to mimic the longevity benefits of fasting in a simple daily pill. Not only has Mimeo been shown to extend lifespan in animals by 96%, but users have been able to take as much as 2.5 years off their biological age in just 8 weeks. How? Mimeo's groundbreaking biomimetic formula uses a patented blend of all natural metabolites that work together to help your cellular health from the inside out. First, there's OEA, which is a metabolic supercharger clinically proven to help control appetite and promote fat metabolism, so you can crush those cravings and silence food noise throughout the day. Then there's spermidine, the cellular autophagy activator, helping clear out cellular junk to boost cognition, clear brain fog, and refresh your cells. Next, there's nicotinamide, a broad spectrum NAD+ booster that's been shown to improve everything from metabolism to skin glow to immune health. And lastly, there's PEA, one of the body's most powerful rest and repair molecules that helps control inflammation, relieve discomfort, and enhance recovery so you can get that youthful energy back. Mimeo is designed to work like a super fast, super efficient fasting diet, but without actually having to fast. It's all about tapping into the power of your own biology, giving your body the cheat code to work its best, making you feel younger and healthier today. You can try Mimeo today. Use my discount code at checkout, which is biohacking and you can get all of these benefits in a simple supplement today. Again, that's biohacking in all capitals. So definitely try it and let me know what you think. Nice. Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Like fasting is such a key component there, as well as like the sleep circadian rhythm and really just leaning into the lifestyle aspect of it. So not just like calories in, calories out, like you said previously, but how does my lifestyle impact my weight beyond just exercising and that type of thing? What other kind of biohacking, I guess, tools and techniques have you used that you have found have been very successful for weight management?
This is going to sound so simple and it's almost going to seem silly, but mindset. And it is a hack. And hacking our mindset and our relationship with food and how we think about eating, where we see food as, reward and comfort and not fuel and medicine, which is ultimately what it was designed to be. So the first space that I always start at, with my clients, because that was another space where I saw a lot of results for myself, is working on that mindset piece, what do we think when we see a food, especially if it's a junk food, right? So, if we see a donut and we want the donut, I think a lot of us have been programmed by diet culture to see that and say, no, I can't have that. It's not on my diet. Or I can't have that. It's bad for me. And that line of thinking, we really trap ourselves. And it puts us in what I call the can't cage. And when you put somebody in a cage, there's only two options, right? Either they're going to kick down the door and run away, or they're going to pace back and forth and wait till you're not paying attention, and they're going to kick down the door and run away anyways, right? So dealing with that piece, and instead of saying, I can't have that, say, I can have that internal dialogue. I could have that, but right now I don't want to. I want to choose health. And so working on that mindset piece is huge. And then, of course, all of those big biohacks, right? Looking at cycling, looking at things like feast famine, where you go from eating a lot to fasting, or just doing a protein fast where just 2 days out of the week, you're having just protein, but making sure that you're hitting your calories and cycling in various ways. And it's going to depend on each individual, right? Like I have clients that have autoimmune conditions where I wouldn't recommend such aggressive protein fasting, but something in that range. Also, your standard sauna detoxing is huge. Healing your gut, right? Making sure that you don't have that gut permeability and making sure that you have enough healthy gut bacteria to break down carbs as they come in. Red light therapy, anything that's going to trigger that autophagy process ultimately is what's going to help improve your cellular metabolism and therefore your metabolism as a whole, if that makes sense.
Yeah, everything you said makes sense. And I think I've probably done all of it myself here and there throughout life. And as a biohacker, it's kind of like what you dabble in. But I'm curious for the people listening. And I just think of some of my friends, for example, who they might not have a underlying current health condition that they are super aware of, or they might not have one at all, but their weight is something that potentially is increasing, let's say every year. And if they're listening to an episode like this and they're hearing you list all of these things that you and I have done and we understand, and it's part of our life, it's part of who we are. How do you help those people who are like, holy smokes, this seems like so much. I don't even know where to begin. It's easier for me to just grab a bowl of cereal, sit down and watch Netflix, and I'm just going to ignore my weight. How do we get them to care about going in a sauna, using red light therapy? How do you bridge that gap? Because for so many people, it's so overwhelming until they really start doing it. And then they start feeling good and better. And then they realize, but that first initial step to cross that bridge is tough.
You're so right. And that's a loaded question, right? Ultimately, you have to want it, right? You have to want to be better. You have to want to be healthier. And if you don't, then you're immediately setting yourself up. But I think that it's also worthwhile to mention that when we aim for perfection right off the bat, we just overwhelm our nervous system. And a lot of people think they're not sick, right? But they have chronic fatigue. They don't really know it. They have gastric disturbances and they don't realize this is not normal. If they're overweight, right, you already have metabolic dysfunction. So they already have these underlying issues. And so I think ultimately something's going to be that poke, right? That's going to say, hey, I don't like the way this feels and I need to make a change. And if we don't want to overwhelm our nervous system, just start by making simple, healthier choices. Just start by cleaning up the diet and noting the things that we obviously know aren't healthy, like the donut, the cereal, the pasta, all that stuff that we really want and we really crave. Just don't tell yourself you can't have it, right? I can have that, but right now I'm going to choose something else because I want to serve health, right? Because maybe I'm feeling the beginnings of this discomfort of metabolic dysfunction. But, I have people that come to me that are incredibly metabolically ill, but they're not mentally and emotionally in a state to even undertake something like that. And that's where we really work on the mindset piece. And we come at it from a somatic nutrition approach and try to get to the root of, well, why are you comfortable being this way? Right? Because it's not, I've been there. I've been obese and tired all the time with terrible digestion. And I didn't like being that way. But I think sometimes we tell ourselves that we don't deserve better, or we think that it's not worth the trouble, or we start thinking about, well, it's not going to make this person love me. So why does it matter? Because I don't love myself. And just starting at those basic mindset pieces and helping people love themselves and see themselves as beings worthy of an enriched, nourishing, and healthy life is huge. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I talk about that a lot. I think that there has to be a very significant why. And it's exactly what you're saying is like, why do you want this? And this is applicable for everything though, like not just weight loss and weight management. It's applicable for anything, like even just like picking to go to the gym or showing up at work or going to bed early, like those simplest things, like there has to be a big enough why. And I find that the deeper the why is, the more successful people tend to be, if that makes sense. So for me, for example, like both of my parents have had different health struggles. And a massive part of my why is like, I don't want to be like that when I'm in my 60s. What can I do today so that I'm not there in 30 years? And it's extremely motivating when you see so close to you how little decisions add up over time and can create very like negative results, relying on medications, not able to like go for a walk without having your heart rate be raised so high and being out of breath, like things like that. So it's very motivating for me, but I think people need that. I also think that there is an aspect of like self-love to this as well, of sometimes there might be how do I like say this? Like there might be a bit of like disregard for yourself and like you don't care, right? Like you don't care what size you are. You don't care how healthy you are. It doesn't matter. It's not going to impact things anyway. Like that kind of like negative attitude, I guess. I don't know if you see that with clients, but I definitely have a couple of friends like that where they think it doesn't matter. And it's hard for me to be like, to explain to them, like, yeah, it does matter. Like, I want you to love yourself enough so that you actually take care of yourself.
That's a really great point there. So the people that I primarily work with are people that, I do deal with weight loss quite a bit, and that was foundationally what I did. But I work primarily with people with chronic illnesses right now and that have a lot of mental health struggles in addition to chronic illnesses and metabolic dysfunction. I found very early on in my business that people that came to me that were purely aesthetically driven, that just wanted to lose weight to feel like they looked better in a bikini, they weren't successful. But the people that came to me that said, hey, this is life or death. I got kids I need to live for. Those are the people that have lost 100 plus pounds with me. So it really is about coming at it for the right space. And I always tell everybody, you know, you're beautiful at any size. You don't need to be smaller to be more beautiful. Beauty is not the goal, and that's not what I work on. So if you're aesthetically driven and all you care about is, I just want to get skinnier no matter what the cost is, I'm probably not the right practitioner, and this probably isn't the right approach, right? But when you're coming at it from a space of, I just want to be healthier, I want to be better, I want to feel better, maybe my weight will normalize as a byproduct, and that would feel great, right? If I start to like the way I feel in my clothes a little bit better, sure. But I don't like to, really preach on that deservability piece where it's like you have to be thin in order to deserve health, right? I have clients where, and even myself, right? I'll never be a stick figure. That's not in my genetics, right? And so I have had people come to me that are, oh, well, I just want to lose 20 more pounds, even though they're at a very healthy weight. And if they lose 20 more pounds, you're going to see their ribs and it's not going to be great. I'm like, hey, not a great fit. That's not what really I do. Ultimately, we have to serve health first and let aesthetics take the back seat.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Yeah. When you have a goal or motivation that's not like shallow, but like just not as deep or emotional potentially, like wanting to be a certain size or have abs or like whatever might be happening, or sadly, there's trends in women's bodies. So whatever might be trending, that is definitely not motivating enough for sure. So there has to be something more and something bigger. And it's complicated. Like it is really complicated. I have one friend specifically who she has a lot of motivation in order to be healthier, but she had so much trauma in her childhood that she uses food as a coping mechanism now in order to feel comfort. And there's this emotional like piece there. So rather than her like taking what happened and making it into motivation and making sure those things don't happen to anyone else, etc., it's kind of the other way of like, I'm just going to continue to push this down and be comforted through my unhealthy decisions. And so there definitely has to come a point, I think, in every person's journey and health journey where that might have to kind of slow down and they might have to say, okay, it's time for change in order to be healthier and mentally, physically, spiritually, like across the board.
I agree completely. There's this interesting concept in the holistic community where when we have a lot of trauma, or let's just say we've experienced a lot of grief or a lot of loss, right? Your body has its own innate intelligence and it senses this. And some people say that, right, the body will start to hoard body fat as a sort of pseudo armor, right? That's protecting them from threats, from things that could possibly harm them, right? I was a tiny kid, like itty bitty. My mom's nickname for me growing up was Peanut. In every class picture, I was like a full head shorter than all the other kids. I was skinny and scrawny and small. And I had these big buck teeth and big glasses. And I was a little bit of a know-it-all. It took some time to reel that in. And so I didn't do so well socially and I was bullied. And I had this feeling that I was small all the time, right? And as I grew into a teen, I started to overcompensate with this tough girl act, right? I got all these tattoos my older teen years and I tried to pretend to be this like big bad girl. And it was really protecting myself from that scared small little girl inside. And so there was that for me, I felt this subconscious piece, this subconscious space where I wanted to make myself bigger. And even though I wasn't really eating all that unhealthily for a lot of my adult life where I was trying to lose weight, my body wasn't ready to let go. My body wasn't ready to be that small, helpless little girl again who did have trauma, right? And everybody's going to have their own flavor, especially in my community of people that have metabolic dysfunction and people, specifically women, that have struggled with their weight for years. There's always an emotional component. We see a lot in people that have lost someone. They have difficulty letting go. They have difficulty letting go of material items in their homes, knickknacks, collections. They have difficulty letting go of body weight. So that's where we stop calling it weight loss and we start calling it weight management, because that word loss, it hurts people just to hear it on a subconscious level.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And it's also just like, it's weird to think like you have something to lose in general. Like the word, I've heard multiple people say they don't like calling it weight loss anymore. And I think our words are actually very powerful, and weight management, it also sounds easier too. Like I'm managing my weight. Like it sounds easier than weight loss. Like sometimes it just feels very like overwhelming, I guess, for people. And management doesn't necessarily have this like negative losing connotation to it. So I love that you do that as well. I would love to transition a bit and talk about your son's health. Your son went through a health crisis and this influenced your career path and your interests. And I would love for you to kind of dive into that and explain to us the story behind your son's health. Do you have trouble recalling names, dates, or where you left things? I definitely have experienced this. Wouldn't it be nice to feel clear-minded and energized all of the time? I know you want this, and I definitely want this as well. Bioptimizers has created a one-of-a-kind product called Mushroom Breakthrough that can supercharge your brain power. It's packed with highly concentrated mushroom extracts that science shows enhance memory, focus, processing speed, and more. Just one serving contains 5 potent superfoods like collagen and 1.2 pounds of 4 concentrated mushrooms, including lion's mane, reishi, cordyceps, and chaga. This cutting edge blend is a powerful way to rebuild your brain and rewire it for maximum energy, focus, and performance in less than 30 days. After each serving of Mushroom Breakthrough, your ability to memorize and recall information will improve, and you'll get a hefty dose of antioxidants for immune support. On top of these incredible benefits, it's also delicious. It tastes like a rich chocolate elixir. Sip our smooth, delicious drink daily and notice your thinking gets crisp fast. Simply mix it with water or milk and enjoy. Or for a more potent blend, you can mix it with your morning coffee to transform it into a delicious mood-boosting mocha. Don't miss out on the brain-boosting power of this amazing new product. For an exclusive offer for my listeners only, you can go to bioptimizers.com/biohackingbrittany and use code biohackingbrittany at checkout. The great thing about Bioptimizers is that you can try it risk-free and you can use their 365-day money-back guarantee. So head over to bioptimizers.com/biohackingbrittany. Try it now to sharpen your edge and reach your potential. I actually think I'm going to go make a cup right after this.
Yeah. My baby boy. I love him so much. So backtracking just a little bit, when I started working with people from a weight management perspective, I started to get a lot of people that were struggling with weight loss resistance where the same old biohacks just weren't working for them. And so I needed to dig a little deeper. And that's where I got into functional diagnostic testing and using lab work to identify healing opportunities, things that are subclinical where your doctor's going to overlook it, but it's a juicy little gem for me to find. And so I joined the AFDNP, the Association of Functional Diagnostic Nutrition Practitioners, and I took the course and I was learning all about functional lab work and how I could better help my clients lose weight. And in the middle of this time space, my then 6-year-old son had a psychotic break. I have goosebumps, just even thinking about it. It was my worst nightmare. It's anybody's worst nightmare. I mean, me going temporarily blind was nothing. It was a walk in the park compared to seeing my son suffer, especially so little at 6. He just wasn't himself, right? He became violently aggressive out of nowhere. And when the school called me and told me about it, even the school psychologist was shocked. She was like, yeah, this isn't like him, right? He's always had a history of having some difficulty sitting still, being a high energy boy. He thinks outside of the box and is a little overly independent in some areas, like his mama. He already had some existing supports within the school. And so the school psychologist knew him well. And when she called me and she told me that, she was like, it's not like him. And then days on top of days started stacking on one another. And it wasn't just a one-off. His behavior escalated in the school. It was completely out of control. I didn't know what to do. I was distraught, right? So I went into my FDN group of other practitioners. And I, for lack of a better term, I basically cried to him. And I was like, you guys, something is wrong. Something's wrong with my son. I don't know why he's acting this way, right? His pupils would dilate. He has beautiful blue eyes. But his pupils would dilate to the point where his eyes were completely black. You couldn't see the blue anymore. And he would just look through you. It's like he wasn't even home. And he would have very strange behaviors, seizure-like tantrums. He backtracked his toilet training. it was very strange behavior. And so I went to the group and I said, there's something going on. My son is a crazy person. Help me. And I got connected to this absolute angel of a woman, Pam McMell. She owns M2 Institute, and she specializes in neurotransmitter screenings. And this really looks at the brain chemistry. And so she took pity on me, even though I didn't have my certification yet. She let me order a test as a practitioner and she consulted with me. Now, Pam has consulted on over, I believe, I might be wrong, don't quote me, but I believe it's over 42,000 children's cases. Yeah, and she's a very compassionate person. So she actually took the time to hear my story and speak to me personally, which was just such a blessing because at the time, right, I was a student. I was just coming off of being disabled for over a year. So we weren't financially in a space to dump thousands of dollars into a functional practitioner. So this was a huge blessing. And when we got the results back, they were extreme. He was extremely out of balance. And I asked Pam, I said, how does this happen? Like, why is this so bad? Why is he excreting such high levels of serotonin, et cetera? And she said, it starts in the gut. There's something going on with his gut. And I thought, you know what? We had contracted a parasite over the summer. And I was like, I had personally still been struggling with it, but the doctor had assured me that it was a one and done thing. Everybody gets a dose of this medication and then the parasite's gone. You never have to deal with it again. No big deal. And so I had forgotten about it almost entirely. But when she said that it starts in the gut, Pam, I thought, well, my son's always had great digestion. What could this be? And I thought, maybe the parasite's not gone for him either. And I went back to the doctor and I said, I think it's still there. And she pretty much said, yeah, I already gave you medication. I'm not going to do it again. I don't believe you. And I was like, okay, but something's wrong with my son. He's having violent, aggressive outbursts and it's at school and it's really bad. And she looked at him and she said, we don't hit other people. And then she looked at me and she winked and she said, there you go. Took care of it. Bye. And I was flabbergasted, right? And I said, okay, that's it. I'm getting lab testing done to prove that it's still there. And so I went and we paid out of pocket for lab testing to prove that he still has a parasite. And I brought it back to her and I said, look, there's still a parasite there. It's not going away. And at this juncture, I don't really trust you. I'd rather work with infectious disease. So we got a referral to work with infectious disease, and we got him a dose of the medication, the antiparasitic. It was like night and day, Brittany. He was like, good morning, Mom. Are you hungry? I can make us all toast if you want. Guess what? I cleaned my room. I'm like, what even? What just happened? We use the neurotransmitter protocol from Pam in conjunction with the antiparasitics. And not only did I get my son back, I got him back new and improved. And it opened my eyes to how many children there must be out there that have severe behavioral challenges where there's actually an underlying, mechanism of malfunction, right? And so then my clients that were moms started saying, hey, Bridget, I heard about what you did with your son. Can you help my son or my daughter too? And so I started doing more lab work on kids and started dealing with children. And oh God, I could cry. It's something that I'm just so passionate about at this juncture. And that's all I'm doing. I'm eating, sleeping, and breathing, furthering my education around children, stealth infections, parasites, and underlying issues in children with severe behavioral challenges. Because as a parent, going through that was horrible. And I look at these other parents that I've started working with, and I just want to hug them all. I'm like, okay, we've got to do something. We've got to kind of switch gears here and bring more healing, especially for our children, because our whole country is in a mental health crisis, especially a children's mental health crisis right now.
Yeah, that's such a powerful story. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm pregnant with my first child, and it's a boy. And I could only imagine how I would feel going through what you've been through, especially someone who like knows about health and then to just like, I mean, I'm just so happy you found answers, right? Like, I'm so happy that you kept digging until you found the right testing that showed, hey, this is actually what's going on here. And you didn't just give up or didn't just put your kid on drugs or like whatever it might be. Like, you actually did so much work. And that is incredible. So good job. I'm just like, kudos to you. I'm so curious why. I mean, we all know mental health is such a big struggle across the board, like you were saying. Why do you think it is on the increase for children specifically? Like, what do you think the factors are that are really pushing that?
Well, first of all, I want to say congratulations on your baby boy. Oh my God, I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
I know the joy that's in store for you, and it's going to be so beautiful. And you are starting out on an amazing foot, already having the knowledge that you have. So you're going to be such a good mama.
Thank you.
So yeah, I think you probably already know the answer to this question, but I'm just going to throw it out there. It's nutrition, right? It all starts in the gut. Oh, Dr. Weston Price wrote that fantastic book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, where he saw a distinct link between mental illness and poor nutrition in children. And then there's also the Pottinger's cats study, where they found that the cats that were eating the processed diets were more likely to have parasitic infections. So, think about, right, when we look at these bad microbes, for lack of a better term, right, whether that's parasites or candida, fungi, pathogens, any microorganism that we don't want, stealth infections, right? They live off of sugar, right? Even cancer, too, going back to my mom, right? Sugar. And you cannot turn over a product in the store now and it not be loaded with sugar. And in this economy, it takes a 2-parent household, right, to be working. So we have parents that are overworked, tired, busy, and they're feeding their kids frozen stuff, right? Loaded with sugar, preservatives, processed junk, for lack of a better term. And I don't blame them, right? I'm a tired mom too. I get it. But ultimately, it's creating the perfect environment to attract bad microorganisms. And also, right, we synthesize neurotransmitters in our gut, right? And for those that, I don't want to get ahead of the curve here, but for those that don't know what neurotransmitters are, basically they're the chemicals that help to regulate your mood and your energy, right? So when when you were growing up and you heard somebody say, oh, he or she is crazy, they have a chemical imbalance, right? And this is what they say, why you need medications. You need more chemicals to fix your chemical imbalance. They don't bother diagnosing or looking at or running lab work to see what specific chemical imbalance you have anyways, but that's a whole other thing. But right, these neurotransmitters, your serotonin, your dopamine, your GABA, which you need to be calm, that is all synthesized in your gut. So if you're eating a processed diet, you're not going to be able to make healthy neurotransmitters. The other piece, which I feel very passionately about, is the plant-based propaganda that's being pushed. So in order to make neurotransmitters, we need amino acids. And we primarily get our amino acids from animal protein. It's really tough to get enough amino acids from a plant-based diet to synthesize neurotransmitters the way that we need. Depending on that, each individual's own metabolism, because it's not going to be the case for everyone, right? But we have a lot of kids that are not eating enough meat. And even if their parents are trying to feed them meat, we get kids that are adverse to meat too, right? That don't want to eat it. They only want to eat chicken nuggets. I get it. So that's a huge piece too.
I agree with you. I think the nutrition is a major aspect. Yeah. I think unfortunately it's like a product of our society, especially just speaking like North American society specifically, or Western society, however you want to call it. It's the lack of proper nutrition. It's the loading of processed food. It's the lack of being outside and outdoors and being active as well. I think it's a lifestyle thing as well. I also probably would say that it's related to screen time and not going to bed at a reasonable hour. Like when I was a kid, I went to bed at like 7:30 for so many years because my parents like forced me to go to bed. And so, you sleep for 12 hours, whatever it was. And yeah, I just like couldn't imagine now being a 10-year-old sitting in my room, scrolling on my iPad, watching YouTube until 10 p.m. or later. And then like that impacting my mental health because who knows what I'm looking at? Who knows? Like I just couldn't imagine having so many outside people, outside voices influence me at such a young age, especially as a female, especially with like body image issues and all of these things. So I think nutrition is a major factor in it, but I also think it's a result of our like very comfortable, always online lifestyle that we all kind of lead now. And when I think of having my kid, I think, wow, this is going to be an uphill battle until that kid is an adult. Is like, I'm going to have to be that parent who's like, no, sorry, you're not having a cell phone until you're 16 or whatever,
You're so right. And it's actually something I tend to forget about because I don't allow screens in my house. So I forget what an issue that is sometimes, but it's huge, right? I mean, we have a ton of data now and studies that are coming out that increases gray matter in the brain. We're seeing children that have Alzheimer's like symptoms from overexposure to screens. So yeah, in my house, it's a hard and fast no. It's going to be a no from me, dog. We don't do screens. And if we do, like we watch a movie together as a family, we build it into that community, into that bonding piece instead of hiring the old electronic babysitter to watch your kids for you, right? Turning it into a bonding experience where we can sit down, snuggle up, eat a bowl of popcorn or what have you, and sit down and watch a movie together. But yeah, there's way too much screen time, and that detachment from our circadian rhythm, right? We're hardwired. This goes back to even the weight loss thing that I was talking about, right? We're hardwired to eat during the day, to be active during the day. Our gastric juices, which break down and digest food, naturally decrease after the sun goes down. So if we're eating after sundown, we're not digesting well. So when we have this artificial lighting, it's pushed us into staying up later, eating later, and there's so many other things. But yeah, ultimately, our detachment from our natural way of living, from our natural environment is by and by the biggest culprit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like what you said there, like about the detachment, because it makes you detached from your body and it makes you detached from your intuition as well. And so, you see it all the time, even with adults who are scrolling on their phone when they're eating. How are you ever going to know if you're full if you're not actually paying attention to how much you've eaten, how quickly you're eating, and are you just finishing what's on your plate versus like tapping into that intuition, your body, how your body's feeling. And it's very hard to do that when you're distracted on your phone, iPad, TV, whatever it is. So yeah, it's all around us. And I feel like it's just going to be an uphill battle. But I also think that I'm so fine and happy to do it because I think the benefits long term for the health of the child is easily outweighs the convenience of let me put this on as a babysitter. Now, mind you, I'm saying this before I have a kid. So we'll see, but I guess hopefully I kind of like stick to it. I mean, at least the first 2 years, because there's research that shows like screen time is very harmful, especially those first 2 years, even on things like eyesight. So I'm just like very cautious about it. But yeah, anyway.
It's a whole new world that we're living in, and we're advancing as society faster than we can even adapt, right? And there's this new movement of people moving forward towards connecting back with our natural environments, and wonderful people like you that are sharing messages and raising awareness, because there's a lot of really wonderful parents out there that they just don't know, right? They don't know that it's harming their child's brain and their mental health, which is huge. I see in the children that I work with major, major improvements just from limiting screen time, especially blue light exposure in the evenings. Just switching to a pair of amber colored blue light blockers in the evening makes a huge difference. And of course, just switching the nutrition. I mean, I've seen clinical outcomes in some really scary children's cases just from diet and light exposure alone.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me at all. I can totally see how that would happen. Living in that circadian rhythm, eating nutrient dense food, and suddenly a kid is thriving because that's what their bodies are craving. And I think it's impeccable that that's the work that you're doing. And kudos to you again. I just love that. So if people are listening to this and they're like, great, I want to work with this woman. This sounds like awesome. How can they connect with you and where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Holistic Bridget. And don't make my name fancy because it's not. It's just Bridge with one T, Holistic Bridget on Instagram. And there's a link in my bio if you want to check me out. I own Southington Holistic Health and Nutrition in Connecticut. I am primarily an in-person practitioner. I work a lot in my community. I'm very active in my local community. So if you're in Connecticut, find me, southingtonholisticnutrition.com. I do take virtual clients, but I'm selective and I'm picky. Not if it's children though, because I love kids.
Great. That's awesome. I will link that in the show notes and on my website so people can easily find you. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. This was very enlightening, and I know my audience definitely got a lot out of it.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Brittany. You're just wonderful. I'm so excited I got the opportunity to talk to you.
Ah, thank you. Thanks for listening to another episode of Biohacking with Brittany. If you're interested in finding the show notes or the sponsors for this episode, you can do so on my website, which is biohackingbrittany.com. Remember to follow me on Instagram where I'm most active. My handle is at biohackingbrittany. And if you're interested in working together and you want to email me directly, you can do that. My email is info@biohackingbrittany.com. And I look forward to hearing from you and having you tune in next week.